Hey everyone, my name is Ryan and welcome to my channel. On today's episode, I am doing a first impression on the Indie Ridge motorcycle boot, the Mohawk. I've had these Mohawk motorcycle boots for a couple of weeks now. So today's episode is going to be a first impression. And I'm going to tell you guys what I have experienced on my first impression rides out. And I've been wearing this thing, when I say I've been wearing these boots, if I can, on a daily basis. So I'm going to go through my first impression of this Indie Ridge motorcycle boot. And I'll tell you this, that what we'll do is I'll just talk about a couple of different things like protection, number one. What type of protection does this boot have? As a whole, this boot is 100% top grain 2mm leather. It's a pretty thick leather, and what I really think is cool right here is this sole has a midsole that is crush resistant, and then it runs right through the bottom here. And I'll tell you this, it's pretty comfortable. It does not feel like a crush resistant sole that when I'm walking around, it's so rigid and so tough that it's uncomfortable walking in the boot. This boot, when I say I've been putting it through its paces, and when I say I've been wearing it, you know, as much as I can all day and all night, I fully understand that when I purchase a motorcycle boot, I have to not only purchase a motorcycle boot that is safe for me, that looks good, I have to purchase a motorcycle boot that when I go drive from point A to point B on my motorcycle, and I get off and I walk around in this boot, it's got to be comfortable all day long. As far as my first impression goes, that's one of the things that I tried to keep in mind with this Indie Ridge boot. One of the things that I really like about this Indie Ridge boot is the bottom of this boot has a dual traction directional rubber. So let's see if you can see this. But these rubber pieces go in a different direction. So you might be thinking to yourself, why is that important? Well, I'll tell you where it's been important for me, because as soon as I saw this, I thought, oh, that's kind of cool looking. Well, when I stopped at a red light and put my feet down and there were some rocks on the ground, I noticed that when the sole hit the rock, it kind of, you know how sometimes you'll buy a motorcycle boot that's flat on the sole like this, you'll step on a rock and you'll just slide across. Well, when I stepped on a rock at a red light, it started to slide and then it caught. So I got a little bit of slide, but then it caught. So the traction on this seems to be, at this point, seems to be a lot greater than any motorcycle boot or motorcycle shoe that I've had to date. The traction, just sitting at a light on basic asphalt or concrete, it felt like it was extremely grippy. And even when I felt like that I was stepping in an area that might be kind of slick, it just felt like that in either direction, forward or backwards, that this boot was gripping the pavement. It was gripping the asphalt, which in turn made me feel a lot more safer on my motorcycle. Speaking of safe, so right here on both sides for ankle protection, Indie Ridge has inserted some hard ankle rubber caps. Here's the good thing about these so far, what I've experienced. What I've experienced about these is they are not digging into my ankles. I do not feel them. Even when I tie these boots down and I cinch these boots as hard as I can cinch them, I don't feel this rubber cap on my boot. So that's a win for me. Speaking about protection, so Indie Ridge, right here in this area on the boot, they have the rigid, what's called a TPU, and that acronym is thermoplastic polyurethane. It's a extremely malleable plastic. So what that means for you is that when you're walking around and you're stepping, going up and down stairs, when you're just walking after you've rode your bike and you've gotten to your place of business and you want to keep these on and you're walking around, this has not been digging into my toes, which is always a plus, because who wants to purchase a motorcycle boot that is only good for riding your motorcycle? Not me, not the OMG, that's for sure. What I want is I want to purchase a motorcycle boot that when I get off, it looks nice. it feels nice, and it's comfortable. I want a motorcycle boot that I can walk around and people don't necessarily know it's a motorcycle boot. But I want something that is a little stylish. And let's talk about the looks of this motorcycle boot. This chocolate looking brown leather is absolutely gorgeous in my opinion. Not only does it have a chocolate brown leather, this has kind of a tannish brown bottom to the shoe right here. This entire sole's tannish brown. So not only does it allow you to have great traction, but it allows you to have style. I really like how the stitching looks on this boot. So it's a white stitch and it runs all the way up the side of the boot, and it complements the leather, it complements the eyelets. And I'll tell you this about the eyelets. I'm not positive what the eyelets are made out of, but they have a kind of a brass look to them, which is really, really cool. And it's easy to pull these shoelaces through the boot when I'm tying it. It's easy to make the boot comfortable right here. Because guys, you know how hard that is sometimes where you're trying to pull this tight because maybe this section of your boot is not tight enough, but it's too tight up here. Well, when I decide to pull this through, it slides through and allows me to tighten up the boot from this first eye all the way up to this top eye. And I like that a lot. Here's another big thing that I really like about this boot. So Indie Ridge has this little bitty pull tab on it. And I like the pull tab. And the reason I like the pull tab the most is because in the past, boots have been real difficult for me to get on and off, especially a motorcycle boot. Number one, I've experienced that this boot has been easy, period, to get on and off. And with this pull tab right here, it makes it even easier. So I'm a big fan of that. Now let's move to the inside of this boot. The inside of this boot has a waterproof membrane liner. So I'm assuming that right up in here, I'm not sure if you guys can see this, but this is where the gusset is, where the tongue actually meets the inside of the boot. And I would say that it's waterproof right up to that point. I have not had these in the rain yet. But one of the things that I plan on doing, and one of my agreements with Indie Ridge when they sent this boot out to me, is that I was going to put this boot through its paces. So I'll test the waterproofness of this boot. It has a little tag right here that says that this boot is waterproof. I'll put that to the test and I'll let you guys know. OMG Nation, because this is a first impression and not a full review of this Indie Ridge Mohawk boot, I've only had it a short while, I cannot give you a full review of this boot. But what I can do is I can make you some promises. With these Indie Ridge boots, we'll revisit these Indie Ridge boots. Let's just say about 6 more months, we'll revisit them. I'll let you know if they continue to be comfortable boots, riding or walking. One of the interesting things that today that I've learned about this boot, and I'll continue to expand on that while riding, that my feet, they aren't, I have a Fat Boy, a 2006 Fat Boy, so my feet are not elevated up off the floorboard at all. And between the floorboard and the shifter, I don't have an issue with not being able to slide the boot under. So for me, that's a win. When I do my full review, I'll let you know if they, like I said before, we'll touch on the comfort. We'll touch on the comfort on and off the bike. I'll let you know where that stands on that review. I'll let you know if these boots wear hot during the rest of the summer. These boots are fully padded right here. So I'll update you on that. So far, so good. They have not been overly hot at all where I take this boot off and I take my foot out of it and I think, my goodness, I'm so glad that my foot's completely out of this boot now. The one thing I have noticed is that this padded inside of this boot is very, very comfortable. The durability of this boot, I'll talk about that. Right here, everybody knows that with some boots, you have issues right in here, what I call the bending point, the breaking point, where boots start to crack, they start to tear, where the sole starts to break away right here. I'll let you know how that turns out when I do my next review. I'm one of those guys, and you might be one of those guys too. And I know I probably shouldn't do it, and that shoes and boots aren't made for it. But when I go to take off this shoe, I use this shoe. And I'll put my foot back here, and I'll help pry it off. I'll let you know if that's too much for the boot. Right now, so far, so good. I'll also touch on the soles, the traction. How does it work and how does it grip when there's a whole lot of grease on the road? I have not encountered that yet, but I want to know about it. How does this boot perform when there's a whole lot of rocks on the road? I haven't encountered a situation where I've been on a gravel road or where I've been on a paved road where there seems to be more rocks than usual. So I'll let you guys know how that works out. The sole of this boot, I'll let you know how it holds up. The comfort of this boot, I'll let you know how that holds up. I will also let you know if there's any shifter issues in the boot that I encounter later on. One of the cool things that I kind of like is I have the toe shifter and the heel shifter on my 2006 Harley Davidson Fat Boy. I'm one of the guys that use the toe shifter. I'm one of the guys that use the heel shifter. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the toe shifter to click up as much as possible. So I want to see how these boots look after they get a little patina and a little wear on them. OMG Nation, one of the things that I'm going to let you know in my full review and update on this Indie Ridge Mohawk boot is I'm going to let you know who I believe that this boot is for. That this motorcycle boot that Indie Ridge has made for the masses, which section they have carved out to say, hey, motorcycle rider, this belongs to you. One of the cool things is Indie Ridge sent a second pair of shoelaces with this boot. And you guys know that if you're like me and you're real hard on those shoelaces and you're constantly pulling on them, that they tend to wear and they break. So we'll see how long these shoelaces last and then how long it takes us to go to the second pair. Something really cool that I haven't touched on yet. When Indie Ridge, they sent me out these boots, they sent them out in this box. All of your Indie Ridge boots come in this box right here. It has artwork on the front of it. This artwork is by Revzilla, and hopefully I didn't mispronounce that name. But every one of these, they call them a shoebox art. They come with this right here. It's a collecting card. You can save it and put it on a shelf for display. Some people have been cutting the front of this box off and saving it and putting it in a frame and hanging it on the wall. I think it's really cool that instead of Indie Ridge shipping you out just a shoebox, they've sent you out something that you can use. Something you can put on the wall and be proud of. And you also get a rider's face covering, a protective face covering. If you're a half helmet guy, you can use it to cover your face and keep the elements off of your face. Also, I like for this to double as a bandana. I throw it on my head with the Indie Ridge logo. Another thing that I think is extremely neat is when you purchase these boots, Indie Ridge sends you out this card right here. This card is called the Live Free Guarantee. And I'm just going to read you what it says. Congratulations. You have inadvertently stumbled upon the only motorcycle apparel company in the world that offers a concierge service. That's the French word for we care about our customers and stand by our products. If you have any questions or issues with this boot, Indie Ridge gives you hello@indieridgeusa.com, or you can call the phone number on here. And I've been told that this phone number is the owner's phone number, Steve himself. I haven't called it yet, but maybe I just might. Just to say hey, and tell them what I think so far about these boots. OMG Nation, stay tuned for the update and follow-up episode and full review of these Indie Ridge Mohawk motorcycle riding boots. Also, Indie Ridge sent me out these gloves. They are called the Golden Glove. Stay tuned for my first impression on the Golden Glove by Indie Ridge. If you have not already, please hit the like button. Please consider subscribing to this channel. Click that notification bell. That way YouTube alerts you of all of the uploads and future activity on this channel. And remember, keep it old school. Thanks for watching, everyone. stall.
So guys, if you haven't watched the footage, then that won't be.
Say bye, Hardy.
Bye, Hardy.
Oh, this is recorded, by the way.
I didn't think it wasn't recorded.
Okay. Just checking.